Hello and happy Friday to everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. We are pleased to have another webinar hosted by Career Elevation. And today we have a lovely speaker, Briean Clark, and I will introduce her in just a moment. So just so you are aware, there is no continuing education credits awarded at the end of this. And if you have questions throughout, please make sure to put them in the chat. We would love the opportunity to answer them if there's time, and we'll go from there. So, to introduce the lovely Briean Clark, I have known her for very many years, and this is not her first time speaking for Career Elevation. I am having her back because she is such a gem. So she is the founder and coach of Pivotal Solutions. She's got 2 decades in dentistry, even though her face looks like she might only have 5. You looking very wonderful. She's crafted a unique method for discussing, diagnosing treatment plans with patients. And I'm super excited for her to be able to chat a lot about that in insurance today. So she is also a fellow of ADAM, and she is a member, she's a speaker, and she's in like the Speaker Consultant Alliance within ADAM as well. She is an active member of DO, and she is an active member of DSI, Dental Speaker Institute, and she still does hold an EFTA license as well. So please, I know that this is like a virtual applause, but let's all put our little like clap fingers together and introduce and have Briean Clark speak for us today. So thank you so much for joining us. Go ahead, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And like you say, this is not our first time deciding to work together. And I'm really flattered by your invitation to return. And I have so much information to try to get into today. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and share my screen. So give me a moment so I can get my presentation open and move all my little boxes around here. I'm going to minimize myself so I don't have to see me while I'm speaking, but all right. So if you could confirm, everyone should be able to see now the welcome to 3 pivots that reduce insurance-driven treatment decisions. Have we made it there? I can't see the chat or anything, but if you wanted to unmute yourself, just make sure you can see my screen.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just talking right away. Yeah. Yeah, so we can see your slides.
Okay.
We can see your face as well, FYI. So
Okay.
if you wanted to know that, we still do see your face on here.
Wonderful. All right. Well, welcome everyone. We're going to jump into 3 pivots that reduce insurance-driven treatment decisions. And before we do that, let me see if I can navigate here. Are you giving me control? There we go. I have it. So before we jump in, I do want to let everyone know a sneak peek into my life and like what in the world has brought me to be in front of you today. Like, why would I even have this message to share? So I want you to get to know me and let you know that I have over 2 decades of experience and time served in dentistry. I actually was a practice administrator for a multi-million-dollar general dental practice. My company, Pivotal Solutions, has now created and crafted my case presentation program called Pivotal Presentations, and I'm giving you an introduction to that today. And I'm proudly the founder of the Sweeten Your Skills workshop in Hershey, Pennsylvania, where annually I meet to share case presentation skills and with my colleague, coding and documentation, all of the things, and it's super fun. And I am a speaker, coach, and hopefully now your BFF. And a little bit about me personally, aside from my addiction to crafting, I'm very Christmas crazy. I actually serve my community as Frosty the Snowman. You can see me in that picture there. That is me as Frosty. And we set up model train display for Christmas right in my neighborhood and 57-foot tall candy canes. And we've had thousands of people come to our community to see the Christmas lights, see the train, and see Frosty. So if you're not going to reach out to me to talk about dentistry, you can at least reach out to me and talk to me about Christmas or decorations or Christmas lights. And if you can access the chat, feel free to drop in the chat, like, where are you joining us from? Like, what state are you in? I would love to know. But talking about my background and what's led me here. Before becoming a speaker and coach, and before managing the practice and overseeing operations, I was an expanded function dental assistant in the state of Maryland. So, if we talk about my journey and what that looked like over these 20 short years, we'll condense it down. And I actually began in dentistry on the oral surgery side and moved into learning all things about the general dental side. And that's where I obtained my EFDA license. My doctor saw a lot of potential in me and the drive and the ambition that I had and took me and participated in a lot of advanced study programs. And I was cross-trained on the administrative side. And then there was a whole bunch of other stuff and some tears, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this part of the journey, and you might even be in that part of your journey right now yourself. But this was me, okay? Going from that dental assistant to then the administrative team member that had to present the treatment plan and get the patient scheduled. I was thinking, this can't be too hard. Okay. I'm a dental assistant running around here like a mad woman, always having patients. Someone's always scheduled. We're always doing procedures. So we're diagnosing and prescribing treatment. It can't really be too hard to get patients to accept the treatment, right? Well, I was super full of hope. I was really super misled of, how easily my administrative team made the process look. And then before you know it, I didn't even have a name anymore. I became the front desk. Patients weren't referring to me as my name. My team members weren't referring to me with my name. The doctor wasn't. I was the front desk. So that took some getting used to. And I had this reality check, what was actually really going on behind the scenes when we're preparing and presenting this treatment and getting our patients to say yes. So let's take a closer look at what some of those tears were, what some of this ugly, messy part of all of our journeys are. And that's things like grumpy patients. Maybe there's denials and all these different insurance letdowns. That was my major reality check. Patients were declining treatment. Maybe the production was low and the doctor was questioning me and trying to ask me questions. Where are my patients? And did they say yes? And when's the last time you talked to so and so? Patients were blaming me for balances and all of these issues that were not within my control. So it was a big difference for me. And as a person who has presented thousands of treatment plans, after many of those experiences and discussing money, discussing insurance, and working with my patients to get the treatment that they needed, here's what was actually happening. So insurances were great at finding ways to pay less than estimated. And that was one of the big shocks to my system. I was working clinically. I was somewhat aware that this happened, but not to the extent. So it was a big learning curve for me that insurances were so good at finding ways to not pay or pay less. And then, despite my best effort of calculating and setting up the plan and having the spreadsheets and having the verifications, all of the things, there still were often surprise balances for patients. And there was those disappointments and surprises. And also, I really noticed that the conversation was so differently in the operatory that they were in the consultation room presenting this treatment. And patients would be making treatment decisions based on what they thought the insurance covered. So I realized in all of these conversations very quickly, I'm like, there has to be a better way to do this. And that's what I'm here to show you. That's what I want to share with you today and give you this introduction to my thought process. And you may already have thought, like, well, what in the world is Pivotal Presentations? I keep hearing about this 8-hour program. Like, what is Pivotal Presentations? It's where we actually learn how to shift patients to treatment-focused conversations. Right now, it's very insurance-focused conversations, and doing that is what's going to allow us to have less insurance-driven decisions by our patients. And that's why we're here today, because we want to understand what can we do to really decrease and lessen these insurance-driven decisions by our patients. It's also my technique that I've crafted to have a full fee presentation, even as a PPO. And at the end of all of these methods and techniques that I've shared, it equals less stress, more efficiency. There's more solutions for our patients and our practice, and ultimately more results. So this probably looks familiar to you on the day-to-day when we are bombarded on the administrative side, our clinical team coming to us and asking us things, well, can you tell my patient if the insurance would pay for their bridge? Or the patient only wants to do whatever their insurance will pay for. Or she said she wants to only do what the insurance will cover. Can you tell them how much this will cost? And then the questions like, can I take bite wings today? And you're like, we went over this in huddle. Are you not listening? So I wish we could just take these papers and throw them over our shoulders and call it quits like you see here in this image. But what's unintentionally happening in this cycle of conversation is starting that chain of discussion from the operatory to the administrative team member responsible for presenting treatment, and then the patient conversation. We are beginning and continuing this focus on the insurance. So here is this old way that we were taught and shown and demonstrated on how to prepare and present treatment plans to patients. This is what we do daily in our practice, where the clinical team has this treatment plan, and we're going to print out from the practice management software this treatment plan. And that form is going to have all these descriptions and codes and tooth numbers and surfaces and write-offs and fees and totals and patient portions. So we're predicting write-offs. And then we have this chain of conversation that has started and that we continue to have these insurance focused conversations. We think that I'm going to go and tell my patient about their insurance, when we need to have this new way of how we're presenting the treatment, unlearn that process and relearn presenting treatment that is more so customized to the patient with a custom document. And we're presenting the treatment information utilizing the patient's allowance only, and spending time having a conversation where we are focusing on the dentistry that the patient wants. So let's imagine, we've gone through a lot of the program. We've worked things out with our clinical team of getting them to this stage where they can set the treatment coordinator up for success. So let's imagine that clinical team that's going to leave the operatory, and the clinical team understands what treatment the patient wants. They're understanding what's motivating the patient to treat the conditions. And the patient understands how to get started, like what is first. And the patient's going to have an idea of treatment costs when that's applicable. And all of the questions have been answered clinically in the operatory, and they've confirmed that with the patient. My patient's directed of what is next, and my clinical team members actually used my name. They built that value to what I'm going to do for the patient. They're transferring the trust, by using someone's name, something so simple. But how do we get our clinical team to that? I'll get you a sneak peek here. So there's going to be one component of that process where there needs to be some closing questions by the doctor, assistant, or hygienist, and bring that conversation to a close after we've educated the patient and say things like, well, to confirm, Mrs. Patient, the bridge option is what you felt was best for you, correct? Or if we're still not sure and we've reviewed all of the treatment options, we can say, well, was there a treatment option that sounded best for you? And understand that. Or ask the question, did you have concerns about the treatment we have discussed? Because I'd like to understand what those are so I can best help you. Or perhaps saying, what questions do you have for me? And what we will do next is. We always want to be directing to what is next. And if your thought process is like, well, but my patients ask me insurance questions, and that makes me feel uncomfortable. I just want to crawl under the desk and hide, or crawl under the cabinet and hide. So our insurance conversations do not need to become the elephant. Having a phone conversation, we want to make sure that we can be prepared for insurance-driven patients, or patients really that have questions about how their insurance works. I want us to be able to address insurance questions and then redirect the question back to the patient and ask them what they know about their insurance. We want to be confident and remain treatment focused. So address the question, make the patient feel heard, then redirect the question, and then begin our treatment conversation again. And being able to have this confidence and this skill set is what's going to allow you to have a consistent message from the entire team. And those things have other benefits like trust and all of the things that we're looking to build with our patients. So questions you can use to redirect the patient, like say they're, well, I only want what my insurance will cover, and will my insurance pay for that? And they're facing these questions in the operatory and even sometimes over the phone. You can ask questions like you see here. Well, I only want what my insurance will pay for. And then you can say, well, do you know how much allowance you receive each year? And begin that conversation to educate the patient and give them some perspective. You can ask questions like, well, has anyone sat down with you to go over how your insurance plan works? Or did you receive a booklet with all of your plan details that your employer selected for you? And you can even ask the patient, well, do you know what treatments are not a covered service in the plan your employer offers? And these are great conversation questions because right now when a patients are presenting that to the doctor or hygienist or assistant, they're saying, oh, well, you'll have to go talk to Bree about that, or you'll have to go, that's our front desk. They'll be able to tell you all about that. And our patients don't really feel heard when we do that. And there's no decisions being reached in the operatory, so you cannot really set me up for success as that person responsible for presenting the treatment plan to the patient. So let's talk about our first pivot that I really want to help you with today. And that is understanding this belief that we really should have about insurance. Because when we have the correct belief and understanding and convictions about the realities of dental insurance and the disappointments insurances can cause, we can have this new mindset and this new result that will help us best have these conversations with our patient, handle objections, answer questions like, well, I want what my insurance will pay for and what have you. So to challenge that thought process and help you have that light bulb go off, I want you to think about insurance this way. When patients are in the office and they have this treatment plan being written, no matter if you're in the operatory or you're now in the position where you're presenting this information to the patient, you are there to understand what treatment the patient wants and then work to motivate the patient to do that treatment. And no matter the treatment plan, your patient's allowance remains the same. The only information that's priority in your mind is understanding the patient's allowance, like what monies will the insurance pay out to assist the patient. So think of it, no matter what treatment I'm presenting to this patient, their allowance is going to remain the same. So why would I not want to tell the patient about the best dentistry and care you can provide? So if I'm going to be having a conversation with the patient about, we can save this tooth with a root canal and crown, or we can extract this tooth and do a bridge, or we can extract this tooth and do an implant, abutment, and crown. Having that conversation and answering patients' questions, what we want to keep in mind is, hey, you have an $1,000 allowance from your insurance company. I'm confident we can maximize that, but let's discuss which one of these treatment options sound right for you or best to you. So you educate the patient in these conversations. You can motivate them to treat their conditions and do something about the problem. And then let your patient decide which treatment to use their allowance for. And if I had more time, I could deep dive into using myself as an example of having my craft store coupon and having to go in and decide how I use my coupon for what product. It's the very similar thing where tell the patient how you can help them, and then let the patient decide how to use that coupon or how to use that allowance. And if you have to redirect a very insurance-driven patient, I want this to become your belief and have the confidence to say, well, here at our practice, we encourage patients to make treatment decisions doctor to patient and not based on the limitations dictated by insurance. So let's talk about what treatment is important to you and how we can help you. So my challenge to you is, can that be your belief? Would you be able to say that confidently to your patients, or do you still need some shift or some mindset work to really believe that the insurance is there to assist the patient and you're there to find out a way that you can best help them? So the second pivot that I'm going to work with you today is talking about how we can shift the responsibility from ourselves. You heard me say some of that messy part that just sort of made me cry a little bit was patients blaming me or getting angry and upset. I went from patients wanting to hold my hand and celebrate and be comfortable and happy to then blaming and fighting with me about insurance decisions. So how can we shift the responsibility? How can we change a little bit about that patient expectation and also share with you some verbal skills that will help you address these things in your practice? And one of the first things I want to share with you is language you can begin with this afternoon, Monday morning. Like, start saying this in your very next patient interaction, and you will see such a huge difference, because currently the responsibilities we place on ourselves and what we're taking on in the conversation is by using language like we, me, and I. And I want to work with you to shift your responsibility to they, yours, and you. And currently the conversations are sounding like this, where, well, we estimate your total to be $130 for your fillings. And that outcome then becomes, well, your insurance paid less than we estimated, leaving you with the balance. What's going to happen there? We have an angry patient. They're blaming us. Maybe they're going to leave that negative review and have us all losing sleep overnight. Or maybe they won't even pay that balance and they decide to change dentists and go elsewhere. It happens, right? So if we want to shift the responsibility with these changes in the language, it would sound like this now. Your total treatment estimate is $654, and your insurance estimated that they will contribute $130. And if your insurance pays less than they estimated, you would receive a billing statement from our office. And with this pivot and this shift in our language, now our patients are going to understand the treatment total. I mean, ethically, we really should be telling the patient what's going to be on that claim for the insurance company, right? Also, in conversations like this, we're putting the responsibility to the insurance company. I'm going to lessen the amount of times I'm positioning myself as that middleman. Like, I want to stop that. And I can do that with this language. And also, I'm setting the stage here for my patient to understand what could happen or what would be next, which is the billing statement coming from our office if their insurance would decide to pay less than they have estimated. And now that my patients know that, they're likely to take quicker action when the billing statement is received. And I'm a big believer on our verbal skills and how we're saying something to our patients, not what we're saying, but how. So here's some insurance language to improve your conversations on the daily and help you educate the patients about the reality of the dental insurance. And what is that reality? What we see every day, what we are experiencing, and what we're finding is the downgrades, the limitations, there's exclusions and deductibles, there's non-covered services, patients max out, there's clauses and waiting periods. Like, there is so much that could cause a disappointing or surprising decision from the insurance company. So how can we better discuss how insurance works with our patient? And that's by watching the language that we are using. And here's your vocabulary that I want to share with you today. And I'm hoping you're writing these words down and again, put them in place in your conversations day after day and see the difference it makes. And that's language like allowance, contribution. It is a supplement. It's here to assist you. Your treatment would be an investment. There are limitations. And how can we use these vocabularies in a sentence form? Let me share with you some examples. You could say, well, we often see insurance limitations that are disappointing to patients. However, we are great at finding ways to make treatment possible despite the low insurance contributions. So I love that you're pointing out to them how you're great at helping your patients despite this. You could also say your insurance can help supplement your care. However, it will only assist you in a portion of your cost. Or what if we told the patient, I'm confident we can maximize your yearly allowance and assist you with the remaining treatment investment with one of our many payment options. You can see that I'm not using language like benefit or pre-auth. And I have a whole component of my program where we talk about the dental cuss words that I've listed and put together. And I have my swear jar here. And the word benefit would go tucked into that swear jar. And what we would want to say instead is we're going to verify eligibility. And also instead of pre-auth, predetermination. Because what you probably experienced in your day-to-day is this misconception patients have that their dental insurance works a lot like their medical insurance. And when we use language like that, we're only feeding into that misunderstanding. benefits, we know that when you're paying $28 a month to have this dental insurance, it's not going to be anything like what you've experienced with your medical. Also, if we're using language like pre-auth, that's telling the patient that you need their permission or their approval or their authorization to do something about these conditions and problems. And that's not the case. So changing the language predetermination, and you could use these words like you see here in my examples, which is, as a courtesy, our office will contact your insurance to verify your eligibility. Or, Mr. Patient, your insurance responded to the predetermination with an estimated treatment investment of $700, let's say. So this pivot, or these two pivots, we could say, would allow you to best educate your patient on how their insurance works, the reality of it, best educate how you can help them. It also begins that process of your patient having this realistic perspective about their dental insurance. You will strengthen your own beliefs. And when you have this belief and this conviction, you're so much better equipped at handling objections, answering questions, or having that pushback from the patient. You're able to redirect the patient back to their treatment goals or back to, let's talk about the treatment that is important to you. You're also able to include value statements of how you can help the patient. Like, yes, this is disappointing, or yes, I know this isn't looking like what you thought it was, but here's how I can help you. We're great at finding ways, all of the value statements you can have. And then you're going to create less insurance-driven conversations, patient after patient after patient. And the third pivot is one of the larger components of this process, and what I had found that there has to be this better way of how can we change this cycle of insurance first conversations from the operatory to the handoff, and then now myself as the administrative team reviewing the information with the patient. How can we interrupt that cycle and make it a conversation first? So let's look at the case presentation itself with the pivotal presentation method. And I always like to say that it's time to put away the crystal ball and change the way we are having these insurance conversations with our patients. And by doing this is what's going to help you save the stress, save the tears. I want to help you do that. So preparing the presentation, of course, we're verifying that all of the treatment has been entered. I'm a big believer, and in more times than not, the clinical team has, being responsible for having the treatment plan entered. We then are going to write the treatment plan on a customized treatment plan document using the allowance only. And then I'm going to take my time now, instead of calculating all this insurance information, I'm going to instead calculate the details for the payment options so I'm prepared and ready to actually have the conversation of how I can help this patient move forward. And allowance only is the key here of what I'm sharing with you. So if you're thinking, well, Briean, why in the world would I only want to utilize the allowance when I'm talking to my patients? And remember, it's through my experiences and interactions with patients that I realized too that I want to save time calculating insurance for treatment the patient didn't even want. Have you ever been in one of these situations where your clinical team comes up to you and they're like, "Oh, we'll just tell them about everything. They want to know about how all of the options cost." Like, are your team members ever coming up to you and telling that? And then you spend all this time calculating primary, secondary, tertiary, and you go into, "Oh, I didn't want to do that." So we want to save time calculating insurance for treatment that they don't even want. And we also want to have some processes in place to where that's not how our conversation is set up for us. Also, we're going to shift to doing allowance only presentations because, like I said, we're going to now be able to walk into that space to discuss with the patient payment options. I've taken the time to prepare how I can help this patient move forward and what a monthly payment would look like, or what a savings would look like if we allow the patient to prepay. All of the things, like, that's where my focus is, how I can help my patient afford this treatment instead of let me try to guesstimate with this insurance information. And I also learned through these experiences that if the insurance won't guarantee or promise us anything, why am I trying to? And I have said that to hundreds, if not thousands, of patients. And I've also shared with my patients that my belief really was ethical to first talk to you worst case scenario, and that is utilizing this allowance amount in my first treatment presentation. So I want to point out that yes, you're still, if you're a PPO practice and you have contracted fee schedules, you will follow your EOBs. You will be posting the write-offs. You will be applying the allowables. So that's not what I'm talking about. What I am sharing with you today is this technique of, before we get to all of this insurance conversation and calculation, my role is to first go and sit with my patient and have a conversation to determine the treatment with the patient first. You want to do this, this, or this. Regardless of what you choose, I can assist you with this $1,000 allowance. So that is what I'm sharing with you, is that technique of conversation. So we're going from this, where the patient maximum allowance is, let's say, $1,000, and even if it was $2,500 or these minimal plans of $500, let's look at an example with 1,000. So that's their allowance, that's their maximum. The treatment plan that I'm presenting, and that's kind of printed right off from my practice management software, let's say the patient's total treatment is $4,350. Mr. Patient, your insurance estimates that they will pay $3,290. And Mr. Patient, your estimated portion then would be $1,060. So these patients with $1,000 that are told their insurance is going to pay, they're going to get a bill and they're going to call you angry. So again, we're over promising and over estimating these write-offs that aren't guaranteed or promised. So that's not the first step in my conversation with this patient that I want to make. I want to first talk worst case scenario and then step into the possibilities of their member discounts and whatnot. So let's take that same treatment plan where our patient has that $1,000. They have that total estimated treatment still of $4,350. We're going to share with the patient that you have this possible insurance payment of $1,000, and your estimated patient investment is $3,350. And that patient with the $1,000 is shown the treatment costs and that worst case out of pocket, or that worst case investment total. So how do we apply a method like I'm introducing to you today? And the first step in applying this method is to not use a printout from your practice management software. Like, that is not the first sit down conversation I want to have with a new patient with a comprehensive treatment plan. And have this rule of thumb that every new patient has a case presentation, which is that D9450. There is a code for it for a reason. So have it be that rule of thumb that every new patient has a case presentation. And what you want to do is to create a custom treatment plan form. Now, when I share with you how to create that custom treatment plan form, I myself, I liked having my form available to me, to where then I would prepare the treatment plan and hand write out the items for the treatment plan, and then make notes in front of the patient during the conversation about their goals and their priorities and getting to know them. But I've worked with some teams, or I've had some students inside my classroom that they've made this custom treatment plan form digital. So more efficiently to them, they could sit and type. Or I've had some team members where you really could not read their handwriting, so they had no choice but to create this as a document on their computer that they could edit and print and then present. So however it would work for you and whatever your style is, to be able to mold this technique to work for you, I support that. But you'll see quickly, by sharing information in this way, how many more times you have a result of a yes, and before you know it, you're helping more patients, serving more patients, and everyone has the win. You also can use your discretion with this method when you're applying it, because once your patients are established, now when they're returning with hygiene, or maybe they're in the midst of treatment, there's an update to the treatment plan, or there's an updated prescription on their treatment plan with your hygienist, you can go ahead and print out the practice management software version of the treatment plan for the continuation of care. But that's because during that case presentation, you've been able to really sit down and tell the patients how you help them at your practice. All of the disclaimers and conversations about deposits and scheduling and what we ask of you and the different payment options and allowing that 48-hour notice for changes to their appointments and what have you. Now you have had the time to sit down and have that conversation. So in one word or another, you can have the confidence that you have now trained your patients or raised them in a way that they understand how you do things at your practice and how you help your patients. So after the case presentation, if you would like to, in the continuation of care, print out, that is fine because your patients have had that sit down conversation. And if you want to know a sneak peek on how can you create your own custom treatment plan form, like if you are the DIY type and you're not wanting to rely on anyone else to assist you, you can certainly make your own custom document, and you want to include things like your tooth numbers. Make sure there's an area that you can put a summary of the treatment, listing the totals and the insurance payment and what the patient portion is. And then you want to make sure all your disclaimers are still on your custom forms. This is an estimate and XYZ that you would typically find. And then the signature line for the patient. And you do, of course, have the option inside my classroom to build your very own custom form and work with me one-on-one to fully implement this conversation tool in your treatment presentations. And then I also want to share with you about the presentation roadblocks. These check marks you see here are roadblocks that I have tools to help people that are responsible for presenting treatment plan, how to move past these roadblocks. But there's also some roadblocks that all of us probably can relate to or have some frustration with. And that's where perhaps we've rushed to the treatment presentation. Maybe the clinical team has done a really great job educating the patient, and the patient seems super on board, and the doctor's like, tell them today, present it today. And maybe they've already been here for 2 hours and the patient's feeling somewhat overwhelmed, and the clinical team's not really picking up on that, but I am. Or maybe there's more information that I do need that I haven't been able to set their chart up, or maybe there's a specific code I have a question about that I do need to reach out to the insurance company. So whatever the reason creating this roadblock, if you're feeling that you've rushed into the treatment presentation, that can lead to miscommunication, misunderstanding, decreased experience of the patient experience, as well as losing trust and confidence in the team or the practice. So we want to be cautious that we're not rushing into the treatment presentation, letting things slip through the cracks, or not telling them everything up front. Or maybe you are someone who is responsible for presenting treatment to your patient and you feel nervous or you're intimidated about discussing this amount of money, or you don't understand things clinically to answer questions, so you feel intimidated and uncomfortable. And perhaps you have this low dollar threshold where, and what I'm meaning by that is, if your practice tends to be presenting patients treatment plans that are $10,000, $15,000, $25,000, but you begin to get a little uncomfortable yourself when that treatment plan starts to get over $5,000 or something, that's an awareness to have, and that's information to share with the manager, share with the doctor, and work together to get that comfort and confidence in presenting treatment. But if you have that nervous feeling or you have that low dollar threshold, I want to share some encouragement with you today that can help you find your confidence. And a lot of the theme for today is that pivot and that mindset, that shift in our thinking, that light bulb to go off. So know your role in helping these patients and know your goal in presenting the treatment plan to the patient. And you can shake off the nerves when you begin to think about and realize that, hey, I am here to reach an agreement with this patient so they can accomplish what's important to them. Like if you take all of the pressure off of yourself of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to go tell them their insurance won't pay for that. And oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to go and tell them that it costs this much money. You need to shake all of that off and not have that be your thought process and think, hey, I am here to go and review this information with my patient, find out what is important to them, and then simply find a way for them to accomplish this. and create that agreement and understanding and help them. So if you can have this shift in your mindset, it again is, it really, really decreases your stress and helps you successfully have these conversations with the patient. And also, you can tell yourself that I'm here to assist them in budgeting for treatment that they have selected. This is treatment that the patient has determined that they want. This is treatment the patient has decided is important to them. These are problems my patient has decided they see the need to treat. So I'm here to help them figure out a way to make that possible. I can review my payment options. I can go over the solutions that I have, and I can help this patient. So approach it as the conversation of you're helping the patient budget for treatment that they have selected. It's a big game changer mentally when you have this mindset. And also, I want to encourage you to have the belief in yourself, have the confidence that you are the best person to help this patient and that you do have a solution. Okay, so have that confidence. When your patients are like, well, why should I come to your office? And why why do I even need to sit down and go over my treatment plan with you? Or this isn't what I had to do at my last dentist. Or if you are feeling nervous and freaked out and, you know, some terrified of having this type of conversation with the patient, take that opinion on about yourself that, you know what, I can help this patient. I do have solutions, and I'm the best person here in this practice, as well as within a 100-mile radius, to help this person solve this problem. So take on that confidence. I hope that encouraged someone today, and having this shift in your mindset will help you go at this conversation differently. And if you are someone who has a team that is rushing you to present the treatment, or things are being miscommunicated and falling through the cracks, maybe there's always a code that's wrong in your treatment plan, or maybe you had that immediate denture and no one added the reline and things are just missing and you're oftentimes correcting things, or you're rushing to this treatment presentation and patients are overwhelmed and confused. Here's an activity that I wanted to share with you today. I really like to help teams set a parameter and create an understanding of when it is okay to present a treatment plan the same day and when you need to decide to bring a patient back for that time that is the case presentation. So set parameters as a team, determine what dollar amount you would like to set in place that would determine your patient would need to return for the case presentation. So reach an agreement. If a treatment plan would reach over a certain dollar amount, let's call it $7,500, that the patient would be scheduled to return for the treatment presentation. And if it's under $7,500, hey, let's go ahead and present this information same day. So have that conversation with the appropriate team member or people in your practice, and let this start a good conversation with you too, so you can discuss, hey, we are kind of rushing into things. There are things that are left off, or patients do seem to be not on board or confusing, or the dots are not connected. So it's a good conversation prompt for you as well. If you have questions about it or you want help setting up parameters as a team, let me know. I'm happy to talk through it with you. And with today's information that I'm sharing, there comes the implementation side of it. Any, let's say, nuggets of information that you could take away from our time together today, and you want to have the conversations with your team and apply some of these strategies and methods, it's important to start off by sharing what you learned with your team. Like, what was that aha moment, or that thing I want to make sure we do, or hey, I heard this today with Briean and I want to tell you about it because we could start doing this today. And work to apply the verbal skills. Pick out one or two of the vocabulary words that you can say, I'm going to begin interjecting these into my patient conversations this week. And then when a new week comes along, pick out two more. And before you know it, you're incorporating all this vocabulary and all of these verbal skills, conversation after conversation, and really seeing the ripple effect that it has in your patient interactions. And also the team activity that I just shared with you, complete that, set the parameters up. And if you need to, reach out to me with your questions. And we're also going to have a couple minutes today for questions as well. But even if you don't have questions and you've had some success, or you've taken something from today and you've applied it and you're like, hey, that worked, I really would love to hear about it. Or if you've taken something from today and you've tried to throw it out there and it just didn't stick or work out too well for you, let me know because I can work with you to refine that and really understand the components of everything to make it work. And I want to ask you to get connected with me, be my BFF, and invite you to become a pivotal presenter. You can raise your hand and step into my world and be a part of my classroom, but get connected and you can see me again. So I'll ask that you do grab your phones if you're not watching this presentation on your phone. But I do want to invite you to connect with me on my Pivotal Solutions Facebook page with a like or a follow. And this will allow us to be connected online. You can stay up to date with any latest news or fun and be my BFF. I'm also really proud of a community that I've built with many people like yourself. I have a Facebook group that is free to join. Uh, you just search for dentistry, treatment planning, and presentations. You can search for it and request to join. Or if you're on my Pivotal Solutions Facebook page, you'll see opportunities, invitations that you can click right into the group. I'd love to see you there. I share a lot of tips, tricks, valuable insight. Happy to have you there. And then if you have any questions that you're not wanting to share live in the group today, you want to be anonymous or take more time with me than we have today, my email address is here. It's pivotalsolutionsnow@gmail.com. And if you could do me a favor and just, if you're writing me a message, just throw in that email subject line, attendee question. That way I know you were here with me today and have an understanding of what information I've shared with you. And if you're saying, you know what, Briean, I really want to deep dive into this topic, this message makes total sense. I want to have these pivots in my practice comprehensively, understand how to do it. You can join me inside my next classroom. I actually have a program starting September 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do try to have periodic open sessions that you're welcome to join, and the times kind of shift and change around to meet all the needs of the different time zones. But September 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we begin meeting every week for 1 hour. You can scan that code and I'll email you the details. And that picture you see there is the award that the students inside the classroom have the ability to earn and have recognition for your accomplishments and your achievements. So thank you for joining me today. I hope to see you in my email inbox. I'm going to stop my screen share so I can have Wendy step in and let me know if there's any questions live. And if not, I'll see you in my email inbox. But let me stop my share here, Wendy.
Hi.
And do you see me back in the Zoom room?
I do. I do. We're here. We're here. What a fantastic webinar. I feel like this time and last time and any other time that I ever hear you speak, I'm like, man, if I was in an office again, I think my entire game would change with what you talk about and like how you implement these words. And it's absolutely fantastic. And um, I'm so thankful that there are people who want to and are getting away from saying the things that you're saying, like let's get a predetermination and or pre-authorization. Let's
Yeah,
see what things are going to look like. So I'm absolutely stoked to have people be able to watch you and learn more good tools that they can bring back to their practice. So I really appreciate you taking the time for us today.
absolutely. And I'm hoping there is one takeaway at least for everyone that was here. Again, this approach, it is thought provoking. It is that interruption to our thought process of how we think this should be done. But the results that we see from having these conversations not focused around what the insurance would pay and actually having it around what my patient wants to do about their problems and conditions, it's a huge game changer. And for me as a coach to see this technique and this message reaching all around the country now and being applied in practices, like that is very rewarding for me. And I know I mentioned in my closing slide there that I welcome everyone to email me and be in touch, but I've shared with you before, but I do pride myself in being this real person that you can talk to, have a conversation with, ask questions, learn with. I am accessible. I am easy to reach. So I encourage anyone that was here today or watching the replay to reach out to me and start a conversation. I'm happy to chat with any of you.
Good. And I also did put in the chat for anybody if they wanted, if they were on their phones, of course they can get the replay as well, and it'll be in the follow-up email. But if they wanted to join now, I gave them your business page as well as the Facebook group as well. And then
Awesome.
I just put in there my information too, which I totally forgot to talk about myself. I feel like that happens every single meeting or every single webinar. So if anybody is interested, why in the who in the world I'm hosting, like why am I hosting this? I own Career Elevation. It is a dental specific recruiting company. We work nationwide. Anybody in a dental office, in a dental company, we really enjoy working with any passionate people that are in dentistry. So, and we also do career coaching as well. I had a career coaching appointment earlier this morning and I was like, oh, she's going to be good. I'm super excited. So, dentistry is definitely a passion of mine and I want to be able to share that passion with other people and bring passionate people into dental offices and give them training like this today.
Yes.
So if anybody is interested in working alongside a recruiter, I work primarily with private practices and small groups, so feel free to reach out, ask questions. I'm not somebody to bite, so feel free to ask any questions that you want. I'm more than happy to help. And again, I'll have that in the follow-up information as well.
Yeah. You definitely are an amazing resource, I will say. I had the privilege of meeting Wendy all the way back in 2018, and the things that I've seen you do and accomplish and the things you're helping people with, like you've stepped up and fulfilled a huge need. So congrats to you. And I'll say that you are a top dental specific recruiter.
I appreciate that. There's not a lot of us out there. There's a handful, but not a ton that do all aspects within dentistry, which I'm happy to be able to pride ourselves in specializing in anything within dentistry. So thank you. I appreciate that. It's
Yes,
very nice thing to say.
you're welcome.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Bree, thank you for joining us. I'm super excited to be able to see who and how who will implement this, how it will affect their practice, and who will hopefully be able to come back and say, Bree, you changed our life. So
Yes,
hoping to hear some good messages like that going forward.
awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
Thank you. Have a great day.